Okay, I'm back. Took a quick break here, went to the bathroom, got some water, and we're ready to go. So there's no fixative on it. There's no workable fixes. We're just going to go right over the top of this, and we just started pulling some colors out. So we just have some different versions of blue. I think this is a mungyo or a Van Gogh. I think this is a Van Gogh. These are either mungios or Van Goghs. They're very close. This is definitely a mungyo, this light gray. And then this is the Van Gogh here, this ultramarine kind of lavender blue, and some different variations of gray. Mostly these are mungios. Okay, so I don't think there's any neo pastels. This one could be, but I think it's a mungyo. Let's go ahead and start with these. So let's just go right over the top of this crepage. That's about right. All right, and we'll just go up and add more color. So we'll start with a light blue, and it goes really nice right on top of the crepage. You can spread that out a little bit. And then down here there'll be some clouds, so I'm not going to really put that down in there. Yeah, this feels like a Van Gogh to me. Van Goghs and the mungios, the Mungyo Gallery, they're very close. I would say that the Mungyo Gallery is a bit softer than the Van Goghs, but they're close enough where I can kind of interchange with them. Right, and this is going to be just a little bit darker blue towards the top of the sky. Much darker blue, as you can tell. But when I blend it out, it will lighten it up a little bit. I'm kind of working top to bottom, and I'm going to work back to front. So I'm going to kind of come down, and then we'll work here, and then we'll do the foreground and the tree later on here. All right, so I got this nice blue, and we'll put the clouds in later. And I could just brighten that blue up with just the lighter version here. So these two colors here, you can see the difference in color. All right, now I'm going to fill this out with foliage here, so I'm just going to put some of that blue in there. Over here. And there's definitely peeking out on this side over here. All right, switch it to this one, and then we'll go right over the top of that to kind of tone it down so it's not so much of a contrast. Definitely lightens that up. And making sure the camera is not shaking as much as I can prevent that from happening. You can see I'm just going back and forth with these two sticks and just putting a lot of color down into it. And I'll just keep doing that till I get a nice base here of color built up and get that nice transition that I want from the sky. There'll be a lot of clouds in here, so I'm not really worried about that part. All right. Neighbor's dog. Let's see what that looks like when I blend it. Get that deep color going. So easy to do this with the smooth surface. Literally just blend this out with my thumb. I am 12 years of using oil pastel exclusively. Like, I haven't really used another medium unless you count soft pastels. I've done a little bit of that. I can see a little bit of this paper texture coming through, so I'm going to add some more color into it. Yeah, so 12 years. I started around 2010 when I switched from being an acrylic oil painter to just using pastels and then just using oil pastels, really. It's 12 years. So as I've gotten further along with the oil pastels, I am just finding that smoother surfaces are just more enjoyable, less work. Started off with the more textured surfaces in the beginning and was able to do quite a few paintings using more texture surface and sanded surfaces, but as I continue on in my oil pastel career, I like smoother. Smoother's better, in my opinion. It's easier. All right, I'm trying to cover that little paper that's showing through. And then just smooth that out. And with the smoother, it really wants to move, so I can really rub it off. Honestly, if I really pushed in hard, I could just rub that right back down to the paper again. So my pressure here is a little bit less. As some parts here, I can see more of that paper coming through, and when that happens, I just add in more color. I just add in more until I don't see that anymore. When working with oil pastel, there's a sweet spot that I've noticed that, and what I mean by that is there comes a point where you get so much color on it that it becomes really easy to move around, and I call it the sweet spot with oil pastels. And you just got to get to that point. You just got to keep adding. You see, I just keep adding more and more and more and more, just these same two sticks, until I get to that sweet spot. And it's really a feel thing, where I can kind of feel the buildup of that with it there. So when in doubt, just add more. That's what I'm trying to say. If it's not working, if it's not blending out right, just add more color. It'll eventually get there. Right now we do see some sky in between some of these branches, but I don't have to worry too much about it because there's going to be a lot of foliage and branches in here cutting through. So I'm less worried about that than I am over here where we can see mostly sky. Working right up to the edge here so that when I pull that tape off, I get a nice clean edge here to work with. So when I frame it, it'll have a nice edge for that frame to sit in the frame. And just add more color, and then kind of blend soft with the hands. If I put too much pressure, I can really rub that off. So make sure I got a clean stick here. More color. You can see with the papers off, I can really shave these down to get some nice edges here. Which sometimes really helps with getting like a line or some finer details when you have a nice edge here like that. Starting to get to that good point there. I want to be a little bit lighter right down in here. Here, this will be clouds eventually. And I'm going to have some clouds going across here too, so. You can see how much I just put into one area, how much color I keep adding to it. And that's the key. That's what you want to do if you want to get to that point with oil pastel where it starts to really flow and almost like paint. You just got to add a lot to it. All right, and over here, let's put some more into this area. So the Van Goghs and the mungyos, as I was saying, they're almost interchangeable, where I can go back and forth between them and use them together almost. I would say that the Van Goghs are just slightly harder, but they're very close. They're close enough where I can kind of interchange them. I started using Van Goghs, I think I've told you guys this before, but for those of you that are new, started using Van Goghs because I was finding that it's really hard to replace the Mungyo brand in the United States. That it's difficult to find them online. I used to be able to go to Jerry's Artorama and be able to just buy open stock Mungyos, and it was very easy to replace. But since the pandemic, since 2020, that all changed, and no longer can I do that. I have to buy now full sets, which doesn't make sense for me financially. If I just want to replace one or two sticks, I don't want to have to buy a whole new set of sticks again. And so I started figuring out how I'm going to overcome that. And so at my Blick art store, they sell Van Goghs open set. And so I decided to give them a try and discovered that they're very close to the Mungyos. The only drawback, I think, with the Van Goghs is the color range just isn't as great, not as vast. And there's some colors in the Mungyo brand that I really enjoy. A lot of the grays and the Prussian blue and the silver gray and the ochres, a lot of the ochres that I really enjoyed. Their color range, I just can't seem to find the equivalent sometimes with the Van Gogh. So that's kind of the drawback with the Van Gogh. So, but, you know, I'm making it work. I've done a lot of paintings with the Van Goghs. So just make it work for you. I think Mungyo Gallery, I think they're Korean. It's a Korean brand. So for you folks living in South Korea or in a country where you can buy them, I know that in St. Petersburg, Russia, you can, because I have a friend there who last year was able to go to her art store and be able to buy open stock Mungyos. And she sent them to me, and that was very nice of her. I know that was expensive on her part to ship that, and that was very nice of her. So, but here in the States, just not doable that I've found. I check the websites every once in a while. I'll check Amazon. I check Etsy, or not Etsy. What's that one? eBay. I check eBay, and just can't seem to find. I can find sets, but I can't find just regular single sticks. So I figured it's probably time to start changing them out, and so I kind of been doing that with the Van Goghs. Right. Now here I need to kind of lighten that part right there, maybe up in there too. A little bit too dark of a blue. the nice transition of a darker blue to this lighter blue. And if you're watching, you can see how much color I just keep adding, just working these two sticks here back and forth. Just keep adding more and more and more until I get that build up. And I do this kind of circular here to get the color down into it and kind of blend it together, blending those two together just by doing this. So you can use one stick to kind of blend in and blend the whole thing out, just using a stick rather than fingers, which sometimes helps out. All right, and you can see I'm shaving this stick down nice to a nice little point. Starting to lose those branches that I put in there, but that's okay, because we'll go right over the top again. All right, now let's see. Light blend, so light pressure here, really not pushing in, just kind of more dragging my fingers across, just kind of smoothing it out. Down here we have clouds, big puffy clouds. I think I'm going to add a little bit more of this blue right up here. And then to lighten that, use just that lighter blue over the top. So all the brands I'm using in my set, I'm using, let's see, 5, include the Mungyo. I can find open stock replacements locally except for the Mungyo brand, which is why I'm using these brands. Because I need to be able to go somewhere and look at the sticks and buy what I need rather than doing that online. It's easier when you can see it in person. So I'm fortunate that I have a Blick art store near me where I can go do that. I have actually a couple of them that I can go to. And so that is why I use the brands that I use. So I use Craypaw's Expressionist, and then the Van Gogh, and then Mungyo Gallery, and then Neo Pastel, and then Sennelier. I think I'm saying that right, Sennelier. I just call them Sens, but I can't really speak French or have a good French accent. And all those brands except for the Mungyo, I'm able to replace locally, which is great. It makes it easy. I'm all about easy. Okay, remember that's going to have branches and stuff, so not too worried. There's a little sky coming in through here, but we'll come back to that later. Okay. I check my hands, make sure I don't have any brown or something on there before I go into the sky. There we go. Now it's starting to really stack. What I'm looking for is when I do this, I just don't want to see the paper underneath, and I don't want the pastel to start coming off the paper. So that I just keep adding more and more until I get a nice deep color blue here. All right. And down here, this lighter blue is going to be more down here. Right, but we got a lot of clouds here, so making sure my thing's not going to fall on me. I can use a stick to blend that around. Oops, broke it right there. We'll just use this little piece now. Putting a little bit too much pressure there. So thanks for you guys for watching the long ones. I know it's not all exciting, but for those of you that do stick it through, thanks. Makes it worthwhile for me, even if it's just a few people. Got a little bit of a dirt on there from probably down in here. Picked it up, so let's see if I can rub that out. Yeah, just thanks for the people who watch the long videos. I'm doing it because back in 2010 there was nothing for oil pastel, nothing. Now there's a lot more nowadays, but still there's not a lot of long format out there, which is free, correct? I mean, some people are charging for it. This is free. It just takes your time and patience to sit through it. But you do need time and patience when you're working with oil pastel, especially a lot of patience. And I'm happy to do this because when I was starting, it just wasn't out there, and I had to just learn by trial and error and just having a lot of patience and just pushing through those boundaries. So this is my way of giving back, I guess. That darker to lighter looks pretty good. I keep looking at my reference over here to see and kind of compare the two skies. So just making sure we got good coverage there. Looks pretty good. Okay. Right. Let's put these back over here and let's look at the clouds. Let's look at that cloud, the big puffy cloud. And you see the blue in the clouds, kind of this, I feel that this is probably the closest color to that. This lavender, right? And you can see like the lighter, these are just basically light grays, that's all those are. And some of this lavender ultramarine. Now this is a Van Gogh. You can see the paper here, and I'm just going to, yeah, it's an ultramarine. I'll just call it lavender because that's what it reminds me of. I'm not very technical when it comes to my names of colors. I just go very simple. Okay, so we're just going to kind of put this in here where we see these big puffy clouds. And it's a different blue than what I have here in the sky. Right, big puffy clouds. Looks like it comes up in here. My dog, Moses. Here, Mosey. Here he is. He's a big boy. He's an English Mastiff. And he's 17 months, I think. About that. Almost, not quite 2 years. He'll be 2 years in June. June next year, he'll be 2 years old. But here's a big boy. He's about 160 pounds or so right now. And he just loves hanging out with me. But when he lays down, he's so big and heavy, he just makes this big plop on the floor. He's a great dog. He's really sweet, actually. He gets super sad when I leave the house. When I have to go to work, he gets really sad. He knows when I'm leaving too. And he gets really mopey and depressed. I wish I could take him with me. So today he's loving that I'm staying home and painting, and he can just hang out with me. You can see where I'm building up the base, the shadow part of those clouds here with this lavender ultramarine color. but Mosey is an English Mastiff. I think when he's full grown, which will probably be around 3 years, I think around the 3-year mark is when they reach their full maturity. I think he'll be probably close to 200 or maybe even over 200 pounds. So he's a big guy. He is a big guy. And when he runs through the house, it's like having a little pony run through the house because he kind of gallops. He's just cute. He's a big baby. People get, I think, when they see me walking around the neighborhood, they get a little skittish, and he's actually very skittish. People get a little worried that, oh my God, that's a huge dog, but he's actually very sweet. And he likes little kids. Like, plays with my granddaughter great, and she's now 5. She'll be 6 in February. And she's gotten used to being around a big dog. But at first, he would kind of knock her over because he's so klutzy and doesn't realize his own size and weight. So I had to be a little careful with him around her. But nowadays, she's gotten used to that. And he always gets so excited when she comes over. And like when we're out on our walks, we see little kids or any kids really, even older kids, teenagers, he gets so excited. So this breed is good with kids. Definitely will recommend a English Mastiff for being really good with kids. All right, you see I'm just kind of working this lavender into it. And I just keep adding it. I just keep adding more and more color. Kind of just keep building it up. And when in doubt, just keep adding more color. And I'm kind of using this circular motion here. Right, yeah, let's see if I can take my hand and kind of smooth it out a little bit. So I haven't really cleaned from the sky, but I can kind of come in here and kind of move that around. Come down into where the trees are going to be. Maybe I need a little bit more down in there. Kind of up in there. Kind of get up to that edge there. If I press in too hard, I can actually start rubbing that oil pastel right back to the paper. So I'm going to add some more until I get that nice buildup going again. It's one thing about this Bristol Smooth that I notice with different papers is I can really rub the oil pastel right off down to the paper if I really keep rubbing and pressing in. Or on texture paper, that's not so easy to do. So that's one difference, I think. But it's a lot easier on the fingers, that's for sure. It's a lot more pleasant with the smoother paper. Okay, and I'm just kind of putting lavender there. The tree has, holes, sky holes. And I'm just kind of put that in there a little bit. And then we're going to use a light gray for the highlights, and we'll see what that looks like. See if that works good enough. And I might actually add in a little bit of a light blue to some of this to lighten up some of that lavender a little bit. Like if I take this light blue and go over that in some parts, I can kind of lighten it. Right, I'm starting to rub to the paper again, so I need to add some more color. Maybe lighten that part. Kind of use a stick to do some blending with. Over here, maybe a little bit more of that light blue, kind of towards the top part of it. Kind of lighten it up. Normally when I paint, I have a lot of music in the background playing, so I can't do that when I do these YouTube videos. So I'm trying to fill the void of silence with my own voice. I can spend a lot of time just in one little area like this, just because I got to get it just right. And so I can see where I need more color. Okay, I think that's good. I don't think I want to really touch there. So you see I was using the stick to do most of that blending with. I was kind of using this lighter stick to do a lot of blending in like this. Right, fade it out over here. Okay, all right. Let's put these two guys down here. Now let's go to a gray. I'm curious if this mungyo will work for this. Other versions of gray I have. This is my gray section. I have a lot of these little bits here, totally different brands. I don't really know which one's which at that point, but that's definitely a mungyo. Let's see what that looks like. I'm probably going to go lighter than this, but we can see what a lighter gray here on the top of these clouds where it's getting some sun. And I got to be careful because if I put in too hard, that mungyo will wipe the underneath color right off. So I'm definitely going to go lighter than this. Probably going to have to bring in a neo pastel gray because I need to get something softer on top of that. Let's see what that looks like up in here. There is a cloud up in here. It comes right across. Here, and I can just start it with this mungyo, kind of work it across. Very light cloud up here. And up in here, kind of goes across like that. Yeah, I'm going to have to bring in a neo pastel. I can just tell when I put this on top of this here, it wants to rub off the bottom color. and I don't really get the contrast of this light as much as I want to. All right, so we're probably going to use this in the water. Use this as our sky reflection, because this mungyo kind of leans. This is a light gray. Yep, it says light gray there. So a light gray mungyo leans to the blue. And I can start putting in the water reflection of the sky right into the water right here, which is what I see over here in my reference. And it's good for that, so we'll probably just keep that down in here. We're going to come back with a neo pastel up here. And that's why it helps to have different brands, different consistencies of oil, wax, pigment. Helps you stack the colors on top, which is what I'm going to need to do there to get those clouds. All right, but here we got the water reflection. Let's move these sticks here before they fall off. All right, and over here I can see a little bit peeking through this bush over here, maybe a little over here. Okay, keep it flat. Water has to be flat to make it sense. Ooh, that's Mosey's stomach I hear growling. This boy eats a lot. I didn't really realize that when I decided to get an English Mastiff, even though I read a lot about them. But this boy eats 7 cups of dry food a day on top of 2 wet cans a day, and sometimes more. And I feed him in the morning and then in the evening, and he eats it all. He's a big eater. And on top of that, he poops a lot. Big poops. So yeah, you gotta have a budget when you have one of these guys. Food budget. Okay, I'm just kind of working these. We'll work out the water here, but definitely the lighter parts of the water, I can kind of put that in now. All right, let's go to this is a Neo Pastel. I can just tell feeling it by the stick. You can see the size difference between a mungyo and a Neo Pastel. And we can put in this lighter gray here. So it's nice and soft, and it lays thicker too, which is perfect. These clouds, these big puffy clouds in here. And I'll use my finger to soften that out. Kind of leans a little warm. There's a warmness about this gray. And I'll probably even come in with a lighter gray for even more of a highlight there. I don't know why it looks a little pink to me. Maybe that's just the way my light is, my studio light. But on the stick version, it doesn't really see that. But when I lay this on top of this lavender, there's kind of a pinkness to it, which is, I don't care, it's fine. I'll just need to go lighter on top of some of those highlights there. coming in down into my trees, but we're going to build the trees back up into this here. We'll cover some of these clouds up, kind of overlap the trees over the top of those. And here. And here. Just kind of soften that up. Clouds have to be soft and fluffy looking. So I really kind of spread that down with my finger. And then there's some clouds in here, and up top here we have some lighter, really light, fine clouds that just kind of go across the top of the sky right in there. Okay. And over here it's really light where the sun comes here, so this is really light over here, a lot lighter. Maybe I should do a tutorial on clouds and sky one day. Although this is kind of turning into that a little bit right now. But maybe just one that specifically is just clouds and sky. As they can be fun to do and a challenge as well. Right? Kind of these ones that just kind of go straight. They're really light. Really light in there. This will be covered up with lots of branches here, so I don't need to really worry about it, but I like to kind of do a full scene in the back sometimes, even though I'm going to cover a lot of that up. Okay, bring this down. Even in here within the branches, some high clouds, some that there. Pastel is so nice. It's so easy to layer even on top of itself. Just like the suns do, they work really well for that. That's why I went to the neo pastels when I'm doing plein air. I like the color range they have, for one, and two, they can layer on top of themselves very easily. It's a great brand to work with. All right. Okay. All right, I'm going to take a quick break. I think Mosey wants to go outside here for a second, so I'll be right back.